I'm muffin, and I'm half-ass ready. So, we've talked some about canning. We've been doing some food prep, and we're probably going to get a visit from my pit bull here in just a second, but it's all cool. She's part of the family, so. Been really, and I told you I wanted to get my mom in on this. I spoke with my mom. My mom's actually got some people that she knows and loves who wants to learn how to can. So later on in the summer, we're going to put together, my mom and I, a video of a whole canning procedure, how we do it here, how she taught me to do it, how her mama taught her to do it. So I spent some time with my 81-year-old mother today, and I enjoyed it very much. So it got me thinking, yeah, we're going to talk about canning, but I feel like I need to talk about what you need if you've never canned or you want to can. Hey, baby, if you're going to start canning, what you're going to need to start that process. Probably the most important thing is this. And these mugs aren't cheap. If you want to get a good one, you need a pressure cooker, okay? You need a pressure cooker. These all steel construction, some are machined and don't require this gasket on the top. If you have one that needs a gasket, before the shit hits the fan, grab yourself another gasket, okay? And it can store inside your pressure cooker as long as you need it to, okay? All right. So 2 gaskets at least. They don't fail very often, but they do fail. So, and this particular pressure cooker uses a jiggle button. There's probably a scientific name for this, but it's the jiggler. This is, my mother actually gave me this pressure cooker. This pressure cooker is probably 50 or 60 years old, okay? So the jiggler goes on. There's notifications on the jiggler of how many atmospheres of pressure you're going to need in your pressure cooker for things. We're going to go on and talk about that too. But if you're buying a used pressure cooker and it doesn't have this jiggle button, it's useless. It's absolutely useless without this, okay? This maintains the pressure inside the thing, inside the pressure cooker. So, jiggle button stays in the pressure cooker. Gasket stays in the pressure cooker. But you need a pressure cooker, okay? This will do 8 quarts at a time, okay? It'll do 16 pints. There's a divider that's in there. We don't do pints very often. We do, but we don't do pints very often. But if you do pints, you can do 16 at a time. And there's a divider inside the pressure cooker that sits on top of 8 pint. I brought jars. We'll talk about jars too, but it'll hold 8 pints, and you put the divider on, then you put 8 more pints on there. And then the requisite amount of water, and you can 16 pints or 8 quarts. So, pressure cooker, number 1. If you don't have one, get one. Whether you're preparing for the end of the world or you're preparing for a long cold winter with no fresh half-runner beans, you need to get one, because these beans taste just as good as they did the day you picked them out of the garden when they're canned in here. Much better than the canned beans you buy in the store. We've been doing this, my family's been doing this since I can remember, right? We grow big gardens and we can what we don't eat, right? So we're getting ready for the winter. Now, jars. This is a quart jar. Look, I'm going to state a lot of obvious shit that y'all know. I'm going to state a lot of obvious shit, so just bear with me. I'm trying not to be too simple. I know it pisses me off when I'm watching a video and somebody's mansplaining something to me, so, you know, but if you've never done this, I just want to I'm gonna reiterate some pretty simple shit. Okay, there. Quart jar. Now, this is a quart jar with a regular mouth, a normal mouth, right? It's small. This is a pint jar, but it has a wide mouth, right? They're different. They're different sizes. So lids and rings won't work for a normal jar, for a wide mouth jar, and wide mouth won't work for these. So if you have wide mouth, and depending on what you're canning, whether you want wide mouth jars, regular jars. Wide mouth jars work just like regular jars, only if you got something too big to go in this hole, it'll go in this hole. Simple, right? Wide mouth jar, quart jars also come in wide mouth. All the half-gallon jars are wide mouth. Okay, if you jar in half gallons, and people do, you can can in half gallons. You can fit 4 in here. They're all wide mouth. So if you have both these jars, you need both these lids. This is a pint jar, normal mouth. See, simple shit, right? Simple shit. So this, okay, this is not even a pint, right? This is a half a pint. And it has this pretty little design in it. We call these jelly jars. Now, I'm sure that you can can food in there too, just like you do these. I don't know how many will fit in here of those, okay? Probably a shitload. But this is a jelly jar. And we make a lot of jelly here where I'm from, right? We blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, man, we make a lot of jelly here. And so these, I brought one down, and I want to talk about jelly too, because honestly, man, what's life without something sweet? If you're sitting in your bunker and you got some hardtack out of an MRE, hell, it'd be really good to slap a little strawberry jelly on that thing and eat it. You know, it's still the bread's gonna taste like shit, but the jelly's gonna be awesome. Right on? Right on. So, jelly jar, whatever you want to call it, okay? Now, with these jars, you're going to need rings, bands, whatever the hell you want to call them. I've always called them rings. My mom would say, hey, hand me them rings. So you're going to need these rings to fit on these jars, right? Wide mouth rings for wide mouth jars, simple shit. Regular rings for regular jars, right? And once it's canned, you don't need to leave the ring on there. We usually take them off because we reuse rings. We just buy lids. We do not reuse lids here in this home. My mother never reused lids. Now, I have friends who do reuse lids. I think you're gambling, but they've never been sick, so that's on you. You figure that out. We buy new lids, okay? Metal lids. Now, back during the pandemic, y'all remember, this shit was hard to find, right? The reason I'm showing you this stuff now, you got all summer to gather up some jars and some lids and some wide mouth lids and bands. So those are the must-haves to do any canning at all, okay? You've got to have this if you're going to can, okay? Now, this book, my mother gave my wife and I this book, right? Get it up there a little closer so everybody knows. This book is the Mad Scientist book of canning, right? This tells you where to set your jiggle button, right? If you have a lot of the newer pressure cookers have a pressure gauge on them, right? So it tells you where that pressure gauge should read. It tells you whatever vegetable you're canning, whether it's a high acid vegetable or a low acid vegetable, how to properly prepare that, how long to cook it in the pressure cooker. So this book has Jim Dandy recipes. It has temperatures and times and pressure. And you need this book. Everybody who's going to can, needs this book. Now, again, like I told you, this is an old pressure cooker. Here's the book that came with it. So this book also has instructions and recipes, but it's not quite as concise. This is from Ball, who makes the jars, who makes many, many millions of dollars selling jars, lids, and rings. So these guys don't want you to die or get sick, right? Because you're going to come back and buy more. So again, this is handy literature. Look, there's tons of stuff on the YouTube, on the internet, on how to can. People do it all the time on there. They're giving you great information, but guess what? When the shit hits the fan, no more internet. No shit. I'm not kidding. No more internet. Don't freak out. Don't panic. We talked about it. Don't panic. We talked about that, and 3 days is not enough. We talked about that too. Right on, right on. So this book, there's your internet. Booyah! Right there, internet. So these are tools that we use when we're canning, and this funnel, and you can buy these kits anywhere they sell the jars and the lids. Most places have this kit, right? And it'll come with 2 or 3 different little things. The funnel is super important because when you're, especially beans and soup, we also can beans, we can homemade soup, and I know you can buy soup in the can at the store, but this shit tastes better, okay? So, and we can meat, right? We use pressure cookers. I have friends who open water bath can things too. Not how I was brought up. Never even knew anybody who opened open mouth water can their stuff, okay? But there are people who do it and they're successful at it. So I know it can be done. And if you want to look into that, you don't need a pressure cooker for that, okay? But you need a big ass pot. Big ass pot. You need a big ass pot for a couple reasons, okay? The funnel's handy. This tool, this you can use to push the beans or pack things in, and it also has this handy dandy gauge that tells you how much water, how much space, head space you need to leave in each can. And guess what? This book will tell you how much head space you need. Better than the internet. Better than the internet. This is a cool little tool most of them have. In fact, I learned how to use it about 15 minutes ago. I never really thought about it. But when you're cleaning your lids and your rings, okay, everything needs to be sterilized before you start this process, right? Everything needs to be sterilized. Because if you allow one germ on the inside of this lid, inside of this atmosphere, you're going to have spoiled food at the end of it, okay? So, believe me, sterilization. So, these things are in a pot full of hot water. And you need one to put on that jar. So, it's hot water. Little magnet. Boom. You put the lid on the jar. You take the lid off the jar. You put the lid on the jar. You need your ring. It picks up your ring. So you got your ring, right? Just holding it in the air a moment keeps it cool. I've just been burning my fingers for years, and my wife educated me on that. You don't have to burn your fingers anymore, Muffin. Right there. Booyah. All right. This, oh, I'm doing it wrong, sorry, upside down. This picks up hot jars, okay? Look, you're gonna put these things in high pressure steam for an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, depending on what you're canning. That jar's gonna be hot, very hot. You're not gonna touch it with your hand. This tool, you don't have to touch it with your hand. So you can take out all 8 jars and start the process sooner, because you have to allow them to cool before you know if you've been successful. So again, all that information is contained inside your handy dandy paper internet right there. So this tool is extremely important. These tools are not that expensive. The big expense you're on here is the pressure cooker, especially if you're buying a brand new one. Isn't really about expense at this point in time. It's about getting this stuff and learning how to use it. Okay. I'm not going to suck up a bunch more time because honestly, we're not even planting yet. I spoke with my aunt today. She's actually got crops in the ground. She's got carrots this high. She lives a little further south than I do. Their growing season starts a little sooner. But, and I'm going to talk, and I'll probably walk y'all through my garden some. I don't garden as big as I want to. It's a process for me. But I know how to garden. I've gardened most of our life. But I'm preparing places to garden, right? If the shit hits the fan. Okay, I want a place to garden. And so we're going to talk about that too when I start gardening. I do container gardening now. I have friends who do raised bed gardens. Maybe we'll go over to their house and I show you the raised bed gardens. I have friends who traditional garden, and we'll go over there and check that out too. Because when I start picking these half runners, my first cousin is the bean growing man. In fact, these beans, the seeds are from my grandfather, who passed away in 1972. These are seeds that he brought from Arkansas. So this is a very old half-runner breed that my cousin Edsel maintains the seeds. Delicious. I love them. Grew up on them, been eating them my whole life. Talk about beans when we get to gardening. But, okay. I've covered what you need to start with. Man, look, whether you're prepping or just not prepping, man, food preservation puts you closer to the food that you grow all year instead of just enjoying it in the summer or in the early fall or late fall when you start harvesting. Everybody needs to get closer to where their food is. For the simple reason of in the shit hits the fan mode, you're going to be real close to the food that you're getting, right? So, look, I don't hunt a lot anymore. I did a lot when I was younger. I don't hunt as much anymore. But I am going to get into some meat preservation later on, like how we can the hamburger meat. This should be good for 4 or 5 years because of the layer of fat that's on top. So it should be good for 4 or 5 years. I want to get into some meat preservation with y'all later on. But even at that point, salt curing, smoke curing, those sorts of things. And I want to get into some pickling. That's something I've never done. And I want to get into that. So maybe I'll get to learn that while I learn it. But different story. But at this point, preserving, especially low acid vegetables like beans, you need a pressure cooker, or you need to learn how to do open water canning. And at that point, even if you're doing open water canning, you still need the jars and the lids and the rings and the tool set, right? But pressure cooking to me seems a more reliable form. Again, don't want to mansplain too much because, this is things that we've done in my family for a century that I know of. I mean, my grandmother was 96 when she passed away in 1998. So, I spent a lot of time with my grandma doing this. I spent all my life with my mom and my aunts doing it. There's 9 sisters in my mom's family. And we spent a lot of time in the fall in the kitchen with really enjoyable family time, a lot of spiritual time, and wonderful food, right? And if it's something you just want to do as a hobby, man, it's a great way to get closer to your family. It's a good way to pass on something to your children or your grandchildren, right? Or it's a good reason for you to go hang out with your mom or your grandma, right? Because they may know this stuff. They may know a lot of stuff that you've never thought to ask them. So, again, my mom's a prepper and she didn't even know it. My grandma was a prepper. She didn't even know it, right? So, again, appreciate y'all tuning in. Love the comments y'all been leaving lately, man. Enjoyed having my son in on the last video, man. He and I are going to collaborate on some more. Now, he has his own YouTube channel called Mermaid Press, and he also does some live chats on Instagram and stuff. And, you know, the next time he and I get a chance to do that, I'm going to let my guys know when we're going to do that because, you know, it's a lot of fun, and we can instantaneously speak over the internet about what I'm doing and what you're doing, how we can make the world a better place. So I'm going to sign off. You've met my pit bull Maggie. You met my son, and eventually you're going to meet my mom. But I just want to say, tell the ones you love that you love them. This is Muffin. Let's get full ass ready.